Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Michelle for Expat Life Mexico, formerly After Expats. And today I want to talk to you about renting. I know this subject has come up often, but I just kind of want to talk about some of the challenges that I'm seeing some of our community going through, and maybe some of the expectations that might be a little bit off, or some of the things that come up that are different than what we're used to in the United States. And trust me, it can really throw you off if you move to a new place feeling like you don't know how to navigate that. So before we get into this video, if you haven't subscribed to my channel and you've been here often enough and you're enjoying this content, please hit the subscribe button. My purpose here is to tell you that I live in San Miguel de Allende, which is in central Mexico. I have lived here for almost 5 years, and I love living in this big small city or small city with a big city attitude. It's really beautiful. It definitely has its challenges, but it's super charming. The community here is amazing. It's not necessarily for everyone, but it is for a lot of folks. And you know, my goal and purpose is to kind of keep bringing you the day-to-day things that come up, that this series is all about, the untold stories and the ups and downs and things like that. So if you haven't already, like I said, subscribe, please do so and hit the like button. And if you want to know when I post new videos to my channel, hit that bell and it will send you a notification. And with that, let's get into it. Again, I live in San Miguel de Allende, so we're going to be talking about renting only in San Miguel. And again, I share things that are mostly my experiences or the things that I hear from other people. So this has come up quite a bit, and I'm kind of looking up on my board because I was like, did I make any notes specifically about this? Anyway, I do have a pen here, so I might talk about some very specific things. Okay, so my experience when I first moved here was, and I talked about shipping already, so if you did not catch my shipping versus not shipping video, do so. Okay, that's going to be coming out soon, or it's probably already out or coming out before this comes out. So when I was looking around for whether or not I wanted to move into San Miguel, this was at the end of 2017. Wow, time flies. At the end of 2017, I was in San Miguel looking around, trying to decide like where to, right? I hired someone to drive through the neighborhoods and explain each area. Although that felt like a great idea at the time, the reality was I didn't have any idea where I was. I didn't know anything about these neighborhoods. This guy that we used, he did not really have a neighborhood tour mindset or knowledge. So I was just kind of going based on the experiences that I had in the past with visiting Mexico, and just kind of like what looks like an area or a place that I would want to live in. Is that the way to go about doing it? Probably not. I think it is wiser to have an actual expert, a neighborhood tour person, actually take you around and explain like each of the neighborhoods and tell you, what you're looking at, because if it's your first time in the city, or not even the first time, the first week or the first 2 weeks, it's a lot to take in. San Miguel is compact, but it's not necessarily small. It's not Querétaro, it's not Mexico City, but it's pretty spread out, and trying to figure out like what neighborhood is what can be a little bit overwhelming. I think a lot of people tend to ask the question like, where are the foreigners at? Where do they live? And I don't know if that's the way to go about it. I really feel like it takes a little bit of time and maybe a little bit of good luck to decipher where you want to be. So, my recommendations, my top recommendations for how to do this would be, for sure, if you can, get an Airbnb for at least 1 month, or stay somewhere like Casa ELM for 1 month. You know, it's kind of a transition space where you're just there. There's no pressure to sign a contract, to make any decisions. There's just time, you know, for you to kind of explore. And I feel almost eliminate things that you might see that you like, but maybe not all the criterias are being met. Come up with a realistic kind of like list of things that you want, and then understand that the way the process works is very different than the United States. Okay, so in the US we have a lot of ease, a lot of conveniences, and in Mexico it's it's kind of like there are other eases and other conveniences, but looking for a space is not that easy. So the challenges that I find a lot of people have are, at least with San Miguel, the price, right? It's like, what do I get for my money? And then when you see something for the first time, if it's expensive, of course you're gonna love it, right? Because it's probably fully furnished and in great condition. It's probably done really well. So if you are up for paying, you know, U.S. prices, which doesn't make sense if you move to Mexico, right? Unless you got it like that. So I'm not knocking anyone who has it like that, but moving to Mexico, in my opinion, to pay anything above 1,500 or so US dollars a month doesn't make sense. You know, like, it makes sense if you have a big family and that's just what you want, okay? That's my opinion, okay? I just feel like you can get something pretty nice for about that or a little bit less on the average kind of house or townhouse or space or home. I really think that, you know, if you go into Central and you just want all the glam in the world, like, you can pay a lot more. You know, there are places that are going to be around 2,000 US dollars, 2,500 US dollars a month. I just don't see the point if you're moving here to downsize and all this other stuff. But again, it's all on you, your how you see it. Most of the people that I've worked with are not looking to spend an absorbent amount of money on rent. Some are looking to buy a house. We're not talking about buying today. We're going to talk about renting. So when I came and, you know, did this neighborhood tour, I had no idea where I was, right? All I knew was, at the time, I thought I wanted to live in Central. And kind of felt like we got lucky because we weren't in Central, but we weren't super outside of Central. We were in La Lejona, which is kind of a newer neighborhood. It has developments. And I remember pulling into El Secreto, and I was just like, this is gorgeous. You know, it was so beautiful the way the colors were. And it just struck me. It had the cobblestone driveways and bridge houses, amenities galore, pools, gym, jacuzzi, spa, the whole, you know, a tennis court. The security was on lockdown, okay? And I was just like, this is really, really nice, you know? And the unit that we had actually was facing the church, so we could literally see the church. And I thought, well, we're not in Central, we're not in the Central zone, but we're not that far. And coming from Florida and places where I've lived where traffic was like madness, like where things were actually really far, I thought, well, what are people complaining about because I'm 7 minutes away from Central or the church? Like, who cares, you know? So for me, my priority was that, oh, I'm in a neighborhood where if I go out of town, if I leave, I can basically feel like my place is going to be pretty secure. And I really think that that's important for someone possibly moving here, single females moving here. If you're not sure about your space and where you want to be, and you're not sure about Mexico and you haven't tried Mexico on yet, sometimes it might make sense to consider a space that's in a development with all of those things, just to kind of ease into life in San Miguel de Allende. Now, in terms of other spaces that are not in a development, maybe closer to Central, style wise, let's talk about style wise and what you get for your money. It's a big sigh because I feel like I've seen people come through my program, which is my relocation or stay at Casa ELM, soft landing, and then, you know, go out and look for their space. And they've made it their own. You know, they've found their home and they made it their own and they embraced it, and you know, they took on all the challenges. And trust me, you know, we talk about them a lot because I get it. The challenges, simple things as, you know what, I want to spruce this house up because that is the norm here. Like, it is very different from the United States, but they embraced that, you know what, I'm probably not going to get everything on my list, but I'm going to get this much of my list. And do I want a furnished apartment? Do I want unfurnished? If I get a furnished unit, maybe the furniture is not going to be up to par, but I need 50% of the things. So you have to come in being willing to negotiate with the owner up front. Don't let them just tell you stuff. Like, make them sign contracts that say what they're supposed to do, right? So if you go in and you say, you know what, I really need that refrigerator, I really need that microwave, I really need these 2 beds, I really need whatever because it's a furnished unit, but I don't need the rest of this stuff because it's junky. I just don't need it. Can you please take it out? Don't pay to store their stuff. And I'm telling you this because that's what happened to me, because I was kind of anxious about getting this apartment that I was like, okay, good bones, I could work with this. When in the reality of it, maybe the negotiation should have started in the beginning where it was like, okay, I don't need all these things. Can you guys pay for the storage? I kind of went in, I wasn't sure, you know, are we going to bring our stuff down or are we going to use their stuff? And I was just like, I don't like their stuff. And so, yeah, let's bring our stuff down. And then we were stuck with paying for a storage unit for 4 years. So, you know, I share this knowledge because it really was a lot to take on, a lot of decisions that needed to be made. And I just feel like you have to know your own taste, your own tolerance level, how much you're willing to put into a rental unit. Like, a lot of people just say it's a rental, so I don't want to put any money into it. But the reality is if you're going to live in it, you really should consider investing a little bit to make it comfortable for you, right? It doesn't have to be a lot. If you don't care about that, then it doesn't matter, right? I care. This is a rental and I really like this space. No one ever lived in this space. And when I came in, it was empty. So I had to go ahead and, you know, this is my new space. I had to go ahead and invest in some things this time around. And I'm like, okay, I've been here for 4 years. I'm willing to buy a refrigerator now. I'm willing to get a washing machine and dryer. I'm willing, because I know it's hot as hell in April and May. So I need ceiling fans. And now I'm even running my little heater, you know. So I didn't want to buy more furniture necessarily, but there were some things I had to get because I didn't have everything, because the last house kind of supplemented some of the things that I did not ship from Florida. So I feel like it, after 4 years, I eased into life in Mexico. The first year, I really was like, I don't want to buy a refrigerator. I don't want to buy these things because I don't know if we're going to like it here. I don't know if we're going to stay long term, but I still brought my things because I knew long term I wanted to at least stay in Mexico. I just wasn't sure if it was San Miguel for this amount of time. So I knew I didn't want to leave my stuff in Florida either for 3 or 4 years and then, pay for storage over there and then live in someone else's house and space that just doesn't reflect my personality or feel like my home. So there was a lot of like decisions to make, and I feel like there is no straight, narrow path for you if you're considering it. You have to really sit down and take little pieces of advice and other people's experiences. Think about yourself. And when you get to Mexico, you really have to just kind of like chill a little bit out because it can be very overwhelming trying to make decisions and feeling like, well, why isn't this and why? Like, okay, if you're moving to Mexico, my advice to you is if you're renting a house, come with some extra funds to put a little bit of work into that house, okay? If you're renting a house that's, let's say, under 1,000 US dollars a month, expect to do some improvements to that house because most landlords here just don't put money in this regard. They will do the least, okay? They're going to do the least unless maybe it's American owned by someone from the US or Canada. Even then, okay, they're going to do the least. They are not necessarily, it's not necessarily going to be falling apart, but they're not worried about your well-being and things being perfect and it being handed over to you in great condition. It's just the way it is. Now, again, this is for spaces that are not super expensive, okay? If you are renting a house that costs, more, they're going to do more. It's probably going to be in much better condition. You get what you pay for, basically. And I hate to say that because, yeah, people are like, oh, cheap rent in Mexico. San Miguel has higher prices, higher pricing. You can still get good deals, but expect to get the least out of this situation. Don't come with this US, oh, I'm expecting this. It's yeah, you're gonna have to do stuff basically. So in the first place that I lived in, when I went in, it had great bones. That's how I said it. I was like, this good bones, right? I don't like that chandelier that has to come down. I'm putting up a ceiling fan. I don't like the light in the bedroom. It looks like, they got that on sale, putting up a ceiling fan there. I don't like these curtains because they were like, 1.5 feet too short from the ground. That just bugs me. Pet peeve, decorator's pet peeve. And I brought my own stuff. I was just like, okay, I know where I'm moving and I'm going to make sure that I bring my own things. And I've already discussed that. Or have them made. There's a place here that will actually make curtains and things for you. Buy the fabric and they will make it for you. So more information. So the point is expect to have things done. So when I went in, there were like 2 or 3 walls that were green. And I just didn't understand it. I was like, the whole house is white, but we got 3 green walls. Someone was having fun. So I just was like, okay, I'm gonna redo some of this stuff. So I would say the investment that went into changing some of those things up was about a month's rent. It was no more than that, maybe a little. I would say it was no more than 1,200 US dollars. I had the entire place painted because it was dirty white. And, nothing negative to the owner, but the owner didn't live there. The owner was like, 2 or 3 hours away. Very nice. They probably would have done these things. You should certainly ask. Like I would ask this time around, but I think I went in with this mindset of I just want to make it mine. I want it to be comfortable. I'm not moving my things in. And I had some time between when I moved in and the shipping company was arriving. So I was like, I'm going to get all these things done before my things arrive. And I got a number for a guy that paints. He was amazing. He painted 2 floors, 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, including the paint. And it was super affordable, I would say. It was around 600-ish US dollars. Now, should you have to do that? Probably not. But for peace of mind for me, it was something I wanted to do. I just looked around and I felt that once I moved all their things out and into storage, which I don't recommend you do, if you're going to bring your things, then get an unfurnished place and just buy the appliances and things you need, or get a temporary spot and figure out, do I want to live in San Miguel? And if you don't know, try it on. Don't go running out and spending a whole bunch of money until you figure it out. But if you make the decision that this is where you want to be and you don't have things, then you got to kind of look around and see, like, okay, I may not have everything checked off on my list, but these are the things that are important to me, and you got to decide that. I can't tell you that. I'm just always sharing what my experience was. So for me, it was important that the house felt fresh and not dingy and dirty with stuff and dirty walls. And they weren't dirty walls. It was lived in. That's what happens when someone else moves out and someone else moves in. It's lived in. So the norm in the US, because I used to own a property service company, when people would move out of a rental unit, we would go in and had contractors, painters, repair people, and cleaning people who would go in and spruce it all up. It was like a turnover in 4 to 6 days, and then I would hand the property management company the keys. They would pay me for my time, labor, and service, and I would pay the people that worked for me. And it was like nice, it was sort of like the before and after. That doesn't really happen here. They might clean it. It's funny because a lot of the units, they will show the unit to you as is. However someone left it, they will show it to you because they do not want to spend any money doing anything, which to me doesn't make sense, because I'm like, if you show it fixed and finished, you're probably going to get someone to sign on the line right away, right? As opposed to someone walks in and they're like, ew, this looks, beat up. And then you tell them, oh, well, I'm going to fix it and whatever. Like, for example, where I live now, no one has ever lived in it. It was new. But the back area, there's like an enclosed outdoor area. And it was like, however it was when they finished building it, that's it. It was dirt, weeds coming up and everything. And I was just like, what's happening out here, right? And they said, well, once someone decides to rent the space, they will fix it after they get the deposit. I was like, oh, okay. So I said, well, how long is that going to take? Because this was last year around Semana Santa, which is Easter, and Christmas and Easter, people don't really work here. Like, they just are on vacation. They're very religious and they're chilling. So, my lease was for the 1st of April, and I was just like, well, how long is it going to take for them to do the back? And they even asked me, what do you want? Do you want grass, or do you want us to do, like the rocks with the cement? And because it was kind of like a narrow strip, I was able to design it myself. And I said, I don't want grass, because how am I going to cut that? And I didn't want a bunch of bugs and stuff out there. I was like, I'll have a container garden, right? And so all I had them do was put in, the rocks in however they do. It's very common here, and it looks nice. And I had them leave one area that was against a wall, really open. So I would say about a foot to 2 feet of a strip against the back wall, and I wanted to do a bamboo garden. So I was like, we're going to put all bamboos over there and rocks and make it all pretty and stuff, but there was no grass. So that's what we did, and they paid for it once I made my deposit. They had some guys come in. I told them, they needed to rush it along a little bit. So instead of it taking 2 or 3 weeks, it was about 7 or 8 days, about a week. And yeah, it's fabulous. So the point is that when I got here, I had more info, more insight on how to look for what suit me and what not to do again. I knew that it was time to buy my own appliances, get my own washing machine and dryer. And I already brought my bed from way back, but I was like, okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and invest in, some additional furniture for the other bedrooms and things, because I live here now, right? So it wasn't necessarily an easy decision, and I think that money was wasted along the way for sure on renting. I mean, not renting, on paying for a storage unit for 4 years. And it was like 75, yeah, $75 ish a month. That's a lot. Like I could have gotten maybe an upgrade on where I was living, even though I didn't need it. I love my place and I love where I am now. I really do. I love this development, a little outside of the city. You need a car here. It's on a golf course. I don't golf, so that's not priority for me at all. But it's nice, it's not as like hoity-toity as where I used to be, but it's very nice. I really like it. It's spacious, security, there's swimming pool, there's a little gym. There's no jacuzzi. I do miss that. Well, there's a little jacuzzi area, but the water is just as cold as a pool, so it's sort of like, what's the point? I don't swim. I do swim, but I haven't swam here yet. I love walking around. The mountains are here. There's a vineyard right next to where I am, and the rent is super, super, super affordable. So, just kind of like saying that, I feel like, there's something for everyone, but it's hard to make decisions when you first get here because it's super duper overwhelming. And I think that you just have to kind of give yourself a little bit of grace and patience and understand that the way people operate here is very different. To be honest with you, I do think it's great to try on an Airbnb for a month, but as of late, Airbnbs have been, in my opinion, disastrous. I've heard several people that were here trying to figure out, do they want to be in San Miguel, and they haven't had great situations. I wish there were more recommendations that I could make to you all, but it's been bumpy. I had a client that actually contacted me in 2020. They were like one of my first few or 5 consultations, and she had a tough time finding a place in San Miguel, and she came ready. She did a sight unseen. Just don't do that. Just do not rent anywhere that you have not physically been into. And even if you do get here and you see, oh, I love this place, there could be behind the wall problems, and that's sort of what she ran into. The crazy thing is the development looks really nice. Like, it was one of the developments that I like, but I wouldn't recommend that development to anyone. I just, they have good prices and stuff, but there's been issues with it. And what's the name of it? Los Milagros. Just don't. It's in La Leona. I've had several people that rented there and just really had a lot of problems with the construction, plumbing. They look good, but structurally, I just think they're not in great shape. So that's my don't go to place. El Secreto's right next to it. I feel like they're a little more solid, but it all depends on the landlord. Someone else rented over there and the price was great, but the apartment was also a disaster, and then it turned into a hot mess. So, is there an easy answer? I feel like 75% of the people just get lucky or, have great experiences, and maybe 25% have challenges or just hate it because, yeah, you can't be happy in a city if the place you live in is annoying and there's problems and you can't sleep well. And yeah, one of the ladies that came through Casa ELM, she was in a place and they had flooded, like the apartment flooded into her stuff, and things were damaged and things. I mean, things happen here, and you just never really know how you're going to be treated in these situations. So those are things that I'm just giving you, black and white, that can happen, and it can be challenging. There's no straightforward way to know and tackle it. It can come up, but it's like the awareness needs to exist. And I've said to a recent client that it might be a good idea to hire someone to do an inspection, even on a rental place. It sounds crazy, but if you keep running into problems, maybe it's worth the investment. I think it's also a good idea to hire someone to review your contract for you. I did. I think it was $40, 40 US dollars, 800 pesos, and this was like almost 5 years ago. There are people that can help you with that. There are lawyers and attorneys that can help you review contracts that are not, don't have a vested interest in that property or that real estate. I wouldn't necessarily just lean on the realtor. What else do I want to talk about with it? So basically, I think you should come with a little bit of extra money if you plan on renting, not just for the first month security and rent, the first month of rent, or I should say 1 month of security and first month's rent. But if you're like me and you want to put a little extra in, you want some conveniences, I think ceiling fans are amazing here in San Miguel because it can get hot. I think it's essential to have a ceiling fan in the place that you sleep in. I think it's going to come in handy when it warms up. You don't necessarily need, I personally would not buy an air conditioner. I've never felt the need for an air conditioner. The unit that I live in now, it has hookups in every room for a mini split. I'm not investing in that because I don't know that all houses are going to have that. But I'll invest in a ceiling fan because when I leave, all 6 of my ceiling fans are coming with me, all of them. They can take their little chandeliers back and I'll have them reinstalled. So these are things that you have to expect to have done. So if you go in, like for example, when I was at El Secreto and now I'm here, I took down the other chandeliers because I didn't like them. And again, you could love them and you just leave them and don't care, right? I took them down. They didn't go with my stuff. They didn't match. And yes, I was being picky, but I don't care. And I switched them out. So I have a theme. I like very organic, natural, kind of Asian, textured things. And I covered the plain light bulbs with wires. And I bought really pretty bamboo kind of shades. And I put up ceiling fans. I have one in the kitchen, one in the dining room, one in the living room, and then one in each of the bedrooms because it's hot. In April, it is scorching hot. And it's crazy because during the day, I'm just like, oh my God, close the blinds. It's really hot. And then at night, I'm under a down comforter. So it happens, and that's the way it is. And as I said, with the other previous house, I bought a fireplace kit because they had a fireplace hookup, the gas kit, and I invested in that because it was cold in November, December, January. It was freezing, and I just feel like I don't want to be inside my house and feel like I'm outside. it's cold, right? So there are investments sometimes that you have to make. I have a little heater, it's on right now. It's not that cold, but I just like being cozy. So, I'm running it. I'm just kind of being like, let's see what happens when I get that electric bill, because it's probably going to skyrocket a bit because I've been running it a lot lately. So what else did I invest in? I did some, sprucing. I changed out. Okay, this is something else you may not want to do, right? In my previous apartment, I changed out all the shower heads because the ones they had a lot of calcium buildup, and they just they look kind of cruddy. So my point is that you can take these things with you, or if you're going to be there for a while, it's kind of worth it. It's like, okay, buying a new shower head, yeah, I could get something fancy like the rain shower or whatever, which I did on some of them, but I think in like one of the bathrooms I was like, okay, there's not really anyone in here, I'll get just a regular straight shower head. But in mine I want something a little bit fancier. But guess what, when I left, I took it with me and I was like, you can have your old stuff back, and I reinstall it. It's easy, just screw it back in, unscrew mine, screw theirs back in, and I'm like, get your old stuff back, right? um, just things, and the things that are more challenging, you want to make sure that in your contract you put that if there's any structural damage, leaks, electrical, plumbing, or anything, that you, Mr. Landlord, are responsible. Mr. and Mrs. Owner, you are responsible for fixing that. And that's something that, because of where I lived before, they did fix some issues that were roofing issues, like wholeheartedly, happily fixed it. Because, when you have a good tenant, you want to make sure you treat them right. And we were good tenants. But you want to make sure that that's kind of clearly written out. Like when I moved here, I know that structurally it's not as sound. Like they're very nice, very modern, very cool looking, but I think the materials that they use were a little less expensive than where I used to be. I mean, it's still made out of like, solid whatever, like I really love these almost ceiling to floor windows and stuff like that. But there's like little things that I notice around the development that, yeah, aren't done overly like well. And like maybe there's going to be some leaks or things like that with time. I haven't had any, but I'm just saying, like in the rainy season, it rains like crazy, like rain, 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 and rain eventually will deteriorate a lot of things. So I made sure that, these things were written to the contract. Like I've experienced it in the other house, and although I had an amazing landlord over there, I don't know how this landlord is, so I was just like, I want to be sure that it's understood that I'm not paying for any structural issues or whatever. And another little thing that came up when I moved here were my light switches. The contact wasn't quite working. This is a brand new place, right? So I had to really press on the light switch, and there were several of them. It was like they were kind of working, and then they kind of were not working within like a week of getting here. And I was just like, okay, this is some bullshit. Like, no. So, I made sure that, like, look, you're responsible for that. I don't care if it costs $1 to bring someone here to fix it. I'm not paying for it because this is not my space, and this should be working because I need electricity. So there's a lot of these little things. You'll run into challenges. I really think, if you're looking for a place for rent that's like really low end, like let's say $200 to $500 a month, expect to put a little bit into it to make it yours, because I've seen some really cute smaller rental units that, with my visual eye, I love decorating. I'm like, I could hook this up, on a budget and make it nice. So if you move here and you need help, call me because I'm real good at that. But I remember a few years ago, one of the ladies that helps me out sometimes with watching my dog and helping me with Micah babysitting and stuff. She's a young lady, and she found this little, like, it was real awkward, like little tiny kind of I guess it would be considered a little studio or something. And I went in there and I said, "Girl, we're gonna make this cute just for you." And the price, I mean, it was like 3,000 pesos a month, like $150 a month, and it included a few things. Now, this was a few years ago, like 2019 or something like that. Um, but I remember we saw several places right in that neighborhood, San Antonio, off Orizaba, and you can walk to Central, you can walk to Rosewood, you can walk to a lot of places. And I went in and I was like, okay, again, we invested a little bit of money. I helped her out because she was younger and didn't have a lot. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to throw in the guy to come and paint. And we painted the furniture that they had. It had furniture in it. It was furnished. And, it was old and kind of meh. But when it was all said and done, it was super duper adorable. We put up these giant, like, not giant, we put up these very long curtains to kind of divide the space. So it was like a bedroom space, and then the front kitchen area, turned the furniture around a little differently, painted it, da 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 da. And it was gorgeous, and it was like a little girl pad. It was cute. And my point is that, I understand some of us being older, we have certain things that we want, excuse me, and certain things that, we expect being older or where we're coming from. But I also think too, because San Miguel is such a social city, that we don't always have to have maybe every single thing on our list. You just want to make sure you're safe. You want to make sure it's within your budget. You want to make sure that it's a place that you feel comfortable, laying down and sleeping at night. And when I say that, I don't mean necessarily from a safety aspect, but just, it's not falling apart. It's not moldy. It's not gross. It's not old and, and it's okay to put a little bit into it to make it your own. I think that that's very possible, and there are a lot of places like this. So, I feel like I'm rambling, but I'm just kind of like trying to share some of the experiences that people have had and my experience, which I came in knowing right off the top, because I've always been this way with every place I've lived in, whether it was my own, I owned it, I paid for it, bought it, my own house or houses, or I came in and it was a rental unit. I've literally done work to every single one of them in some capacity, some way, so that it was me, my style, and it just hugs me when I walk in the door. And that's the way I like to live, because I like to be at home. I like to be in my space. I like to be comfortable. And I just think it's important that when you move to a new place, that you understand in San Miguel in Mexico, that a house may have, like, if you can look at the good bones, get past the green wall, the yellow wall, the pink wall. Some people like that. I don't. Some people love Mexican style tiles and Mexican style house. I do not. I like modern, and I don't mind modern, like, mixed with some Mexican touches, but I need light. I want white. I want light colors. If I go in a house and there's like 10 colors on the wall, instant migraine. Instant. Okay. Nothing to anyone who has an amazing, beautiful home with 10 colors on the wall. So don't be offended, but that's not my style. So I go into a space thinking about what do I want to put into it, and also understanding, like, this space is for me. to live in, and I say me, meaning one of the points, the last point I want to make before I wrap this very long video up, is I want to say that a lot of people are coming down and they are renting, like single women, and I know we've had some recent conversations with some of you, so it's not directed at you, but it's me talking from experience again, and some of the things again that I thought about when I got here and really had to reshift my thinking. Now, the point that I'm making is if you're a single woman or a single man coming down, or even coming with your family, let's try to kind of like reel in a little bit, renting additional room and spaces for when people come to visit you, because they're probably not going to come and visit you. And if they do, it's going to be few and far in between, okay? So my advice is, because I've done this, you know, when I first came, I was like, downsize, 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 downsize. We only need 2 rooms, one for us and one for 2 rooms, Micah and me, and that's it. We don't need another room and another room, and there was the whole conversation when I was married, no longer married, but like, oh, what if the family comes down and the kids and the this and that, and I was just like, I don't want to rent space for the what if moments. So my thoughts were, if people come, then maybe for 1 week of their visit, we can rent a big house, because it is a little less expensive here, and we can all stay in that big house for 1 week. But I don't want to pay extra rent for months, 1 year at a time, contracts, and waiting for someone to come and visit, right? In the end, there was still an extra room. It was a guest room, and I can tell you that 10 months, 9 months out of the year, it was empty. My mom was the one who came the most, and she still does. So when I moved over here, I didn't mind getting a 3-bedroom because it was within my budget, not because necessarily of the space, but because the space was bigger and it was in my budget that I set out. I was like, okay, I'll go ahead and get it. But if my original idea was 2 bedrooms, that's it, because if for any reason I needed more space, yes, now I have Casa ELM, but prior to that I did not, then I'll rent a bigger space and we can all crash there for a week. And then when everyone leaves and goes back home, I can go back home to my space and I'm not paying extra rent. So my advice is, as much as we want to share our new life in Mexico, here in San Miguel with other people, you have to understand that not everyone sees your vision and dream and are going to be as enthusiastic about it. You may want them to come and be like, oh my God, you got to get away from the US, you got to get away from Canada, you got to get away, you got to come down here, you got to see this. People don't view things the same way that you do, right? And I'm saying this because I've traveled so much in my lifetime, and I've wanted to be like, oh my God, you just have no idea how amazing this experience was when I went to these countries and whatever. Like, it's cool and people are happy, they're interested, but they're not necessarily going to be on the same page as you. They're not going to necessarily have the same feelings about it that you do. So my point simply is that you're better off saving your money, spending it on yourself, buying something later on down the line if you decide to live in Mexico, get land, build a house, and instead of paying extra rent for all these extra rooms and it's just you, or it's just you and your family and you have 1 or 2 extra bedrooms, if you're not using them, okay? Like, this extra room is multi-purpose. It's my office and behind this wall is a bed and a TV that I never watch. And it's I love this space. Like, during the day, there's like 2 big windows here, and I have another little office space downstairs, but I just like it up here because there's a lot of sunlight and it just feels like, I don't know, I'm in like a little cove right here. yeah, so I like this little spot. And like I said, save your money, spend it on a trip, treat yourself to more fancy dinners on rooftops. And if your family comes to visit, your friends come to visit you, rent a big Airbnb and stay there for a little while. But, don't really plan around other people in terms of your budget. Okay. So, on that note, I hope I answered a lot of questions. I just remember, don't rent sight unseen. Come try to give yourself at least a month if you can. Feel free to come and stay at Casa ELM. We are a space that allows you to transition into San Miguel life. That's what we're here for, to help you figure out where do you want to be. We're here to give advice. Our relocation experiences offer you this full package on how to move to San Miguel, Mexico correctly with immigration, real estate tours and realtor connections, medical insurance, the whole nine. All of this is a well-rounded way for you to kind of integrate and just take your time. Don't go in, stressing out, grabbing whatever. Like, take your time, make a decision. See if you can do a 6-month lease. Make sure you really like it. If you feel any kind of way about it, any kind of negative way about the place, those feelings are going to increase with time. Understand where you are. You're in a new country. The language, the expectations need to be a little different. Ask a lot of questions. Ask other people what their experience has been, and just give it a chance, right? Don't just jump in. Give it a little bit of time. Do some research. Check it out. See if you can do a shorter term lease. And if you just know, what, this is my spot. This is my jam. I love it. Try to lock in a longer term contract if you know for sure this is for you, and lock that price in. I learned that from an old neighbor where I used to live. She locked her price in, I think, for 5 years. I was like, oh, I never even thought of doing that ever. This is more standardized in the US where, you don't really negotiate rent necessarily. Maybe if you know the person, but usually when rent is listed, rent is rent. And here, rent's negotiable. I've done it. Negotiate increases. Just ask them, tell them, like, what, this year I can't really give you an increase because blah, blah. I locked in 2 years here because I didn't want my rent to go up. And I was like, it has to be at this, and you're responsible for this, da, 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 da. And they were fine with that. I had a great recommendation from the last landlords because, they thought we were fabulous tenants and we paid on time and the whole nine. So those are my pieces of advice is, make sure you check out the neighborhood, drive around if you can, even if you have to hire a taxi, walk it, go there at night. What's it like? Now, if you're in Central Zone, please don't be baffled by all the noises and the sounds. It is noisy in Central, okay? It is noisy in Central. There will be dogs barking. There will probably be roosters crowing. There will be cannons going off. There will be fireworks, but that is Mexico. So don't move here and get mad about it, okay? If you don't want to hear all of that, even if you move out to the country, you're probably still going to hear them occasionally. I live out here. It is quiet most of the time. On the weekends, there's an Airbnb next to me. Sometimes they're noisy, sometimes they're not. And if it's too noisy, I think only twice I had to say something in about a year. Typically, I'm like, okay, whatever. Music playing, whatever. They usually shut it down by 10-ish o'clock. I'm a little grumpy, so I don't, I like quiet. So I just come and sleep on this side so I don't hear it in my other room. But my point simply is it's different here, and we don't always understand things, but you know, that's a part of the growth, and that's a part of the experience, and that's a part of living in another country. Is what they're used to, you may not be used to, but you know, don't let it drive you bonkers and mad. But at the same time, don't let, you know, someone kind of steamroller over you because you don't know how to handle something. So that's my very long spiel. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I hope this is helpful to you. Again, you know, check your contracts, have them translated by someone who's a certified translator. Make sure it's what you want it to say. Make sure that if you sign addendums of items that are in the apartment, that you check and make sure all those items are in there. You know, make sure you get receipts if you give cash for an apartment. I don't give them anything until they're ready to hand me keys. Like, we're doing all of it at the same time. Other people have handled it differently. This is just the way I roll. You know, even for here, I remember she was like, well, you can do the deposit. Like, okay, if I do the deposit so they can start working on the back, I need keys. And that's how we did it. Same with everything else and everywhere else. I'm like, no, I'm not moving in until I get the keys. So if someone's there and you have stuff to do, whatever, we'll sign the contract the day that you give me the keys, and I'll give you the money. Okay. I've paid cash. I got a receipt, got my lease, got my, yeah. So, you know, I don't necessarily say don't do that, but just make sure, you know, you're reviewing everything, make sure you understand everything. If you don't know for sure, hire someone to review everything for you. If there's work that needs to be done, get it in writing, okay? Don't let them verbally tell you stuff. Don't be surprised if they tell you they're going to do something and they don't do it, and you moved in and you gave the money. It's probably not going to happen 50% of the time or more. Don't get mad. Just, you know, try to get it all up front. Get it handled before you move in. Get it done before you sign, before you give your money over. And then when you do all of that, make sure you get the keys so you're not waiting and whatever, because it's just one of those things where it's a space where most people are good, better than we think, but because we have a lot more laws in place to protect us in the United States, it's harder here because it's sort of like the laws are there, but it's just a longer process, I think, for you to try to get that law to work for you. So it's better to take the precautions. So that's it. This is very long. Thank you for watching. If you stayed to the end, please hit the like button if you haven't already. And if you watch my channel, hit the subscribe button. If you have comments or questions, feel free to ask below. And don't forget that we offer relocation tours and a whole lot of other amazing experiences. You can find that at Casa ELM on events. And we offer packages, travel packages that allow you to just vacation in San Miguel. We have a vineyard package. We have a women's retreat, Peace Not Pieces, coming up. We have a Mother's Day excursion here as well in San Miguel. A lot of really cool, fun things. And then again, our, you know, biggest, most important, I guess, experience is anyone who wants to move to San Miguel. That's what we do. We help you move here efficiently. We offer that as a experience as well. And, you know, everything is kind of given to you on a platter, and we do our best to make sure that you understand the processes that are involved in living in this amazing space. So thank you again for watching. Michelle for Expat Life Mexico. Getting tired. And I appreciate you. Check back, stay tuned. These are Untold Stories series, and we're just here to make life in San Miguel a little bit smoother. All right, peace.